Let's see what we can get into today. I think there's some projects we can do out here, and well, maybe not. Uh, Well, we've been getting some rain, and doesn't look like it's going to end. So I don't mind being cold, but I don't like being cold and wet. So I guess we'll just take it back into the shop and get a cup of coffee, and we'll go from there. Well, we're back in the shop again. I was hoping I'd be able to get some work done today, but as you can see, it's been raining all night, and the ground is soaked. So, and not to mention, it's still pretty cold outside. I don't mind being cold, but I don't like to be cold and wet, as I said in that opening segment there. But this gives me a chance to talk about, uh, I guess you might want to call it an interesting topic. I watched a video last night from Brock at his YouTube channel called Rock Hill Farm. And his topic that it was that he covered was about, do you buy uh, high quality name brand tools, or do you go with, cheap brand? Or when I think of cheap brand, I think Harbor Freight. Now, I own both. I own a lot of Harbor Freight tools, and I own quite a few tools that are, name brand products. So when I think about, if I'm going to buy a tool, it's more or less, how often am I going to use it? What type of uh, use I'm going to put to it? Is it, something I'm going to be using quite a bit, um, or is it a tool that I might use once or twice a year? You know, so that will sometimes make me decide uh, what tool to buy. And I'm not saying, Harbor Freight puts any, cheap crap, all their stuff isn't crap. I'll have to say that because again, you'll see as I go through some of my tools, I own quite a bit of Harbor Freight stuff. And but I will have to say, what Brock discussed about some of it, I agree with, and then there's some things I don't agree with, and I'm just throwing my 2 cents out there. I'm not representing any specific brand or product. You'll see I have a wide variety of product names uh, that I keep in my shop, tools that I use, and so I don't want anybody to think that I'm going to be you know bashing Harbor Freight stuff, and I'm going to be just applauding whether it be Milwaukee or DeWalt or Makita or anything like that. I do not show favoritism to any name brand products. I feel whatever the tool I use and whatever brand it is, as long as it's one that I agree with and I feel confident in that tool, then that's what I go with. I don't think that some tools are superior than others, but I do look for quality and grade in that product. Sometimes it's just the materials. Sometimes you could pick out something and just can tell, yeah, this is a good product. It feels solid, feels like it's got some good, solid pieces in there. And then there's sometimes you pick up something and you could tell it is just cheaply made. Just doesn't feel right. And so I'm going to kind of go over some of the tools that I own, and sometimes it's going to be, uh, you know, stuff that I've owned for a very long time, and some things are stuff that I've just bought recently. And so I didn't want to just come across and bash Brock at all. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying that some of the stuff that he stated on his video, Again, some of it I agreed with, some of it I didn't. So if you all have your opinions on what products that you like, whether they're name brand or the cheaper stuff, put your comments below, and we'll start from there. Now, what I'm going to start out with is some tools that I purchased. Oh gosh, probably close to 30 years ago. Um, when I was 20, 21 years old, I had this. I knew this guy who owned his own um, mechanic, working on cars and stuff like that. And he owned his like a one car garage shop that he owned, and it was just him. And I used to just take my car there, get the oil change and stuff like that. And one day we were talking, and he had quite a few cars, out there. And I was like, "Boy," I said, "you sure are busy." And he goes, "I know." He says, "I need to find some help." And I'm like, "Well, what kind of help are you looking for?" And he goes, "Just somebody that can do the easy task of, doing oil changes, maybe putting a new starter in, or an alternator, or new battery, just kind of like minor repair stuff." Because he was more into, doing the heavy engine work, taking the engine apart and all that kind of stuff. And I had a little bit of an idea of how to work on cars. My one grandfather, he was a mechanic for a very long time, and I learned some things from him. So when I went and started working with him, the first, I don't know, a few weeks, and I was only working, 2 maybe 3 days a week over there to help him out. Uh, After a while, he's like, "Hey," he says, "you're going to probably have to start getting your own tools, because he says a lot of times when I'm working on something, I might be needing the same tools that you're using of mine." So not having a lot of money when you're 20, 21 years old, uh, I decided, okay, what should I buy? And of course, there's always Snapple and Mac tools, that are out there, and those are pretty much your top key names in that industry of wrenches and sockets and stuff like that for working on cars. So the Mack truck came by one day, and the owner of that truck, uh, took me up into the rig there and just started showing me different tools. I said, I just want to buy something that can get me through, but I don't want cheap stuff either. It's like, I want something that's good, but it's not just absolutely cheap and garbage. So he introduced me to, uh, they're called S&K tools. And uh, this is a 3/8 socket set. And then the smaller box is a 1/4 inch. This is metric. And then he didn't have the standard set on the truck. And he said they were kind of on back order at the time. So I just went to Sears. Of course, that's back when Sears was pretty popular and still doing pretty strong. I bought a set of Craftsman 1/4 inch standard sockets, and from way he explained it to me was, your Snap-on tools, your Mac tools. Again, like I said before, they're your top of the line mechanic tools, and the next level down below that is S&K tools, but he says they're just as good as those other two brands. So I went ahead and purchased the S&K tools. Good thing is that they're made in America, and this socket set, again, I've had for over 30 years, and it, like I said, it has a deep well, your short sockets, and it goes from 3/8 up to 3/4 inch. Has a couple extension bars, and then on this side is the millimeter. It goes from 12 to 19. And of course, it's doesn't have every socket, or size in this set. So I think it looks like it skips over the 16 and the 18 socket, which from what I've heard, that's kind of standard. Um, but as you can see, I mean, they still look almost like they're brand new. I take pretty good care of my tools. Usually about once a year, I'll spray some WD-40 on it and, keep them in good shape. Same thing, again, this is with the 1/4 inch drives. You got deep well, short sockets. The short ones go from 4 millimeter up to 12, and I don't have my glasses, so I can't really see which size these go up to, but I imagine it's probably about the same. Um, and I've had those for quite a while, and they've lasted me. They've done me good with those tools. Now, again, I used to use these every day or every time that I went and worked, at his shop. So I knew that I wanted good quality stuff that was going to last me, and it has. So now there are a few things in here that I only use every so once in a while, and those are my Harbor Freight buys. This is a 1/4 inch torque wrench. There's a 3/8 torque wrench that I bought when Harbor Freight had those on sale, and those are something I might use once a year. Uh, so I don't see buying like a Snap-on torque wrench that from what I've heard they can range up well over $500 for just one torque wrench. Whereas with this, I might have paid 20-30 bucks for one of them. And but again, I'm not going to use it that often, so I don't see the sense in paying a high item or a high amount of money for something that I only use every so once in a while. Something else I bought from Harbor Freight are these ratchets that have a flexible head. So if you get in a tight spot where you can't have the bar all the way out to tighten or loosen up a bolt, and you only have a certain amount of range, you can turn them. Again, these are Harbor Freight ratchets, but I don't use them that often. It's an item where you just need it when you need it. It's not something you're going to use all the time. I think I might use those once or twice a year, if that. So again, these are my sockets that uh, I've had for a very long time, and they have withstood the test of time because I've used them quite a bit. So this is my 3/8 and my 1/4 inch drives. Down here is my 1/2 inch sockets and drives. Um, this green box is also S&K sockets. The thing with these, this green box and this blue box, these actually belong to my grandfather. And when he passed away, they were passed on to me. But I mean, this is wrapped in electrical tape, which I don't understand why, but maybe to make the grip a little bit more comfortable in your hand, or I'm not sure. But I didn't have these when I bought these other sockets. Um, I just got these maybe 6 months ago or something like that. My dad brought them to me and asked me if I wanted them. And but this, like I said, this is an SK set, and also this is a Krauter, I think is the name of the brand. Uh, but as you can see, has some very large sizes here. This one goes up to, I believe, an inch and an eighth. So those are for more of your heavy duty type of work. If you're working on engines and stuff like that. Um, I found that I use more of the 1/2 inch drive stuff when if I'm doing work on some of the tractor implements. Like when I bought my flail mower, it just came on a big steel pallet, and I had to put it all together, and it's got some pretty heavy duty bolts on it, so it was easier to use, the half-inch drives, and just seems like you'd be able to get a little bit more torque on it than, even using a 3/8. But I have the short sockets, millimeter, standard, uh, and this is a Harbor Freight brand, Quinn. They're from Harbor Freight. And then I bought the deep sockets also. Got the standard and the metric here, Harbor Freight. So again, these are items that, these sockets here are not something I'm going to use, every day. Uh, 9 times out of 10, I'll use my 3/8 drive for most of my standard work that I'm going to be doing with a socket. But I have those, and then I also had purchased the impact sockets. These are the shorts. I believe these are the standard, and these are the millimeters. I think. Yeah, these are the millimeter. So these are the short impact sockets. And crazy part is I don't even have an impact driver or impact wrench. But again, when I do decide to get one, that'd probably be a Harbor Freight brand, because there's not many times I'm going to be using, an impact driver that often. So I don't see the need to go buy, a Snap-on or a Mac Tool impact driver when, those are really expensive. And so that'd be another Harbor Freight purchase. Also, here's another torque wrench, half-inch drive. This will come in handy, if I decide to take the wheels or off the side by side or the tractor, and you want to torque them back down. Make sure you get the right amount of torque onto the nuts to maintain proper amount of torque on those. Got a breaker bar for it. Now these are the deep well impact sockets, and again, these were my grandfather's. So they're made by Duralast, and I'm not sure where they're actually made at. I can't see. Maybe looks like made in Taiwan. But again, quite a few of my tools that I own are ones that were given down, passed down to me from my grandfather when he passed away. So some of the stuff, it might be, again, I don't know what this Duralast, I've never even heard of it, whether it's a good brand or, a cheap brand. I have no idea. But as you can see, with the half-inch drive and the green box, that was S&K. So, that's a good one. And so I'm going to have a combination of different brands and quality in all the tools that I own. So those are the um, sockets that I use, and I would say with that, using sockets, it's going to depend on what are you using it for. You know, are you a mechanic that's going to be doing work on vehicles, trucks, or farm implements or anything like that, almost every day? Then I would say go with a higher quality uh, grade of tools. I'm not saying go buy Snap-on or Mac tools or anything like that, but get something that is going to last you, and that way, because if you just sometimes go the cheap route and buy cheap stuff, you're going to use it, and it's probably going to break. And guess what? Then you have to go buy it again. Um, so sometimes it's almost better to bite the bullet early and get that better quality uh, type of equipment. And something that I'm going to cover here in just a second on other impact sockets, and or not impact, but just socket sets that I kind of didn't agree with Brock on. So we'll cover that here. All right. Actually, let me turn this light on. my light I just put up yesterday, Harbor Freight. Uh, just kind of helps out having a little bit more lighting in here. Um, so another thing that Brock talked about that he didn't think was useful, or he kind of didn't care for, was these all one socket sets. This is a Cobalt socket set, and now I have to say I didn't buy this one. This was a Christmas present quite a while ago, and but it doesn't have the deep sockets in it. It's got all the shorts, and it ranges from I think 4 millimeter up to 14 millimeter. These are 1/4 inch drives, and then in your standard it goes from 3/16 up to looks like 3/8. Oh, it also has a 9/16 and a 1/2 inch in there. But is this something that I'm going to have to, you know, do work on my tractor or the side by side, or even on my own truck? Uh, Probably not. This actually, I keep a small toolbox in my garage, and if you're married, you're always going to have something to fix around the house. There's always going to be somewhat of a honey-do list. Honey, can you fix this? Or hey, honey, can you put this up or do that? This is what comes in handy for having in the house. Actually, I use this the most is at Christmas time when my kids get all these toys for Christmas, and you got to put them together, and it keeps me from having to come all the way out to my shop, get a bunch of tools, drag them in there, use them, and then bring them back out here. So I find this kit very useful for somebody that's just going to do minor stuff that's in your house. I don't see the sense of dragging my SNK tools into the house to put together. you know a, my son, we got him a little toy tractor for Christmas, and I don't see the sense in dragging all those big tools in there just to put this little tractor together, when I put the whole tractor together just using this. So I find this product very useful, and uh, I've had this for years. I'm guessing well over 10, 12 years, and I don't see ever not finding it useful. So I would definitely look into just getting a small toolkit like that for just small projects around the house. Something else, and he didn't really cover anything similar to this, but this is just you know, you got your micro screws here, for those very fine, minute screws. Again, a lot of times it's the kids' toys. All the toys that come with batteries in them are screwed down, so you can't even change the battery without taking screws out. And they're those real small ones. So that's what makes this nice. You got these micro ones, and then I wouldn't, these are just some cheap screwdrivers, flatheads and Phillips, and I wouldn't, compare these to the screwdrivers that I use in my shop. Out here in my shop, I have Craftsman and Husky screwdrivers, and I think those have a little bit more uh, strength for torque and stuff like that. I wouldn't necessarily, again, I wouldn't be using these to work on my tractor or side by side or something like that. Where I might have to put a lot of torque in it, because I just don't think the metal would withstand. I mean, these tips are actually pretty thin, and but again, these are another set that I just keep in the garage for if I got to do something around the inside the house. Also, this is a interesting product, and it's also Harbor Freight. Now, this product here, I bought pretty much for the sole purpose that I keep this in my truck. I have almost kind of like maybe like a foot locker that I keep in the bed of my truck. I have a cover, over the bed of it so it doesn't get wet or anything like that. But what's nice about this is that it has, a lot of different types of tools in it. And the benefit of this is that if I'm out somewhere, I'm on the side of a road, something breaks down, at least I have something that I might be able to uh, get my truck working again. Or a lot of times, what I've used this at was at work. You know, there's times where I had to repair something at work and didn't have any tools available, but I was like, hey, I got my toolbox out in my truck. And again, are these tools that I'm going to be doing some heavy work on and all that? No, but at least it's something. That way, again, if I'm out in the middle of nowhere or I'm over, on vacation, I'm not going to drag my whole entire tool set with me if I go on vacation and something breaks. This way, I got screwdrivers, I got vice grips, I got pliers, wire cutters, uh, small crescent wrench. I've got some wrenches, tape measure, a little hammer, all these sockets. Got some Allen keys. Also, these are some micro precision little screwdrivers, and then you got all these bits here on the side. Now, I think I got this on sale. I think the normal price on it is I think $40, and then I think I end up getting on sale for like $30. So again, you're not going to overhaul an engine. You're not going to build a house, especially with this little dinky hammer here. Uh, but you have something. That way, if something happens, something arises, you got some tools. In fact, when my stepfather had passed away, I had a kit exactly like this, and I went to visit my mom, and he had some tools, but he didn't have a big variety of tools. And she was asking, if I could fix this, fix that, and found myself. I went out, got this out of my truck, and when I was done, I was like, "Mom," I said, "just keep this." I said, I'll go buy another one, and that way, if she needs to fix something, like I said, there's some screwdrivers in here. I doubt she'll get into using the sockets, but pair of pliers, a little hammer, a little tape measure, stuff like that. She has some tools in for herself. So when I got back home, I just went and bought another set. And again, this just stays in the bed of my truck for that possible need of needing some tools, and I don't have to carry a big toolbox with me and take it in and out of my truck, each time I go somewhere. All right, we're going to get into the wrenches. Sorry, I had to get a drink of coffee there. Um, as with my sockets, I bought those when I was working on vehicles quite a while ago. And at the same time, when I bought those sockets, I also bought some wrenches. So, of course, these are S&K wrenches. I bought the standard and metric. The S&Ks go from a 1/4 inch up to 3/4 inch. And then I also have one S&K that is 15/16 in 1 inch, and this actually belonged to my grandfather. So I got that when he passed away. And then I have some other wrenches that are when I was 18, 19 years old, I bought a cheap set. They're called Crewline. And I was working at an auto parts store during that time, and I didn't have any tools, period. So I bought these wrenches. I have the whole set somewhere, but I just picked out these two because then it just kind of continues the size that I need for in my drawer. but also have the S&K, and they go from 7 millimeter up to 19 millimeter, and it doesn't skip, a size. Uh, but as you can see, they're still in great shape for as long as I've had them. Again, about once a year, I spray them down with WD-40, and that just keeps them in better shape. My screwdrivers, I think I mentioned them earlier. I have Craftsman screwdrivers and also Husky. Um, I think I have 8 Huskies and also 8 Craftsman screwdrivers, and then I have some oddball ones. Some of them were, again, this one belonged to my grandfather. It actually has a wooden handle, and it's a old Phillips head screwdriver. Not that I'll probably use it. It's kind of like sentimental value to it. Here's some old wrenches that were also his. You know, some of these are so old I can't even read the names on them. But again, I just keep them in here because, I just have the history part of it. Something also that I have are these called Crowfoot ratchets. These are 3/8 drive, and the reason why I bought these is I was working on a piece of equipment one time, and I couldn't get to it with straight on with a socket because there was something in front of that bolt, and but I couldn't get a wrench in there because there wasn't enough room to really do a lot of work, with the wrench. It would have there wasn't just enough room. Well, by putting this on an extension and then having the socket drive, I was able to slide that up in there and just had enough room. Then I can just work the socket driver, and was able to get it off. So I have the standard and the metric, and these are Harbor Freight. As you can see, they're Pittsburgh brand. And but again, that's a tool that I might use once a year. Um, so I'm not going to go and buy a name brand product of these just so I can use it once a year. Um, so as you'll also see, like I said, those are Harbor Freight vice grips, Pittsburgh Harbor Freight. Um, these are Cobalt type of pliers. I did not buy these. These are, I think, given to me for a Christmas present or something like that. Um, so I didn't spend the money on those. This belonged to my grandfather, and I would imagine it's some tool to get a bolt off. But I'm not exactly sure what the name is because my dad had given it to me. I don't think he actually knew what it was either. So, but it appears like you can just latch that onto a bolt, and you're able to to crank it off, and the head of it angulates side to side and all that. It's made by the Superior Tool Company, and prior to my dad giving me this, I'd never seen one of these before. So whether I'll ever use it or not, I have no idea. Uh, but again, it belonged to my grandfather, so just having some of his tools, um, you know, kind of means something. This drawer here, again, Harbor Freight. Here's some channel locks. Here's crescent wrenches. I buy the whole sets. I got 4 of these and 4 of these, all in different sizes. And again, these are tools I'm not using all the time, so I don't see the purpose of buying, high dollar tools when I might only use them a couple times. Here, got some chisels. Here's a air drill. Go to your compressor. Harbor Freight. I think I've used it maybe a couple times. Again, I have electric drill. I got cordless drills, and I don't know why I even bought this. I've only used it, like I said, a couple times. This is something I actually bought yesterday at Harbor Freight because it was on sale. But it's a air compressor. You hook it up to your air compressor, and it's a tire gauge, and put air in your tires, but also it tells you how much you have in there. Uh, these are on sale for $10. And again, I'm not something I'm using every day to, like if I worked at a mechanic's shop or something like that, I'd probably buy a higher quality. This is my drills and drill bits and uh, that sort that I would use for my drill. Uh, I have some step bits, for cutting into metal. I have both Harbor Freight ones, and I bought a set from Lowe's. And as of using both of them, I really don't find a whole lot of difference between the two, in the materials. They both work the same as I have experienced. So that I would say, again, how often are you going to be cutting into metal? The reason why I bought a set from Harbor Freight to start out, and then I think I was at a Lowe's one day getting something, and I bought another set, is because when I was putting up all these walls, the framing part of these walls, I was drilling in to these steel beams, and I just wanted to, make sure I had good quality uh, step bits, so that when I went to put the screws in to secure the studs and all that to the metal, uh, I wasn't having to sit there and fight, just trying to get the screw to get started and go in. So those I found again, um, whether they're Harbor Freight. Now you don't want to buy. I think it's Warrior brand from Harbor Freight. I think those are cheap metal, but I believe if you step up and get, I believe the Bauer or the Hercules step bits, I think the quality is a lot better. Uh, the drill bits, again, these are Harbor Freight, and I found that the smaller the bits are, the easier they'll break. If you put a little bit of pressure into them, they'll snap off pretty easy. But what I found also is when I do snap one, then that's when I'll go to Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever, and then I'll buy a better quality uh, drill bit, for these smaller ones. The larger ones, I don't use that often. So there's what, I don't know, 20, 30 drill bits in here, and I might only use maybe a half dozen of them. But buying the whole set, I do have the option, if I do need a certain size, I already have it. And again, your smaller ones, I think it's just the metal isn't as high quality. So that's why a lot of times I'll just replace it with, like an Irwin bit or something like that. Also, another Harbor Freight is, I think they call it a key lock set, but it's got all your different types of bits. You get your flats, you got your Phillips, you have square heads, you got Torx, you got star bits, you got all these other funky ones that are in here that actually I use this set, quite often. But at the same time, there's enough in here that if I do break one or snap one, then I got enough of the others. Like the number two Phillips, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of those. So I think I got enough number two Phillips heads in here, and so I do use that. As again, I've got a lot of my grandfather's tools. As you can tell, I mean, this is pretty old, but these are a lot of his old drill bits. And again, I don't know when I would use all these, or even if I ever do use them. It's just the just having that sentimental value. Here's another big drill bit that was his. Again, I don't know if I'll ever use that, but just having it. One thing I definitely would say I would not buy at Harbor Freight again are these Forstner bits. I find that their cutting edge isn't the greatest, um, especially if you're using the bigger ones. If you use these bigger Forstner bits, there isn't enough cutting edge on there. I mean, as you can see on this, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 spots where it's going to be cutting wood. Whereas if you go with an Irwin, it's almost completely blades, all the way around it. So you're going to get a better cut. The smaller ones, I don't find as much of a problem. When you get down to probably these 3 here, they actually don't do too bad of a job. But you start getting into the bigger ones where you got more cross section that you have to cut out, then I find that these don't work as well. Now I'll just go over some of the tools I have up here on the wall. Move this stuff over, get this out of the way. Again, this all either goes in my garage or it goes in my truck. So this stuff doesn't even stay out here. As you can see, I keep some of my tools out here. I don't put everything in toolboxes, especially stuff that I use quite a bit or I just need quick, easy access to. But here are, some wire cutters, some needle nose pliers. Here's some, can't remember the lineman's pliers. And again, this Harbor Freight. You can go out there and buy, the real high dollar expensive lineman's wire or lineman's pliers. But again, it's not something I use every day. If I, did electrical work all the time and stuff like that, then yes, I would probably buy a higher quality set of those. Here's a set of pliers that's made by Craftsman. These were given to me by somebody. I don't remember, but I still use them. Cutting knife. This is a Craftsman. That's what I use if I'm cutting, something a little bit larger. But also have a bunch of these small razors from Harbor Freight. Because when you're in the checkout line, they have a little bucket, kind of like similar to what my pens and markers and stuff are in. And I usually grab 2 or 3 of those. I think they're, I don't know, 60 or 70 cents a piece. And so I keep quite a bit of those on hand when I need them. Here are my hex key sets. And again, Harbor Freight, Pittsburgh brand. Something I'm not using every day. But when I do use them, they're nice because, I can come over here and just grab the whole set. That way, if I'm outside my shop working and, that way I'm not having to walk back and forth. I just grab the whole set and go out with it. As you notice, also, I put magnet strips on some of these tools. So that way I just push it up there and it's magnetized. But this is a standard set and this is the metric over here on this side for your hex keys. Again, I don't use them that often, so that's why I just go with the Harbor Freight. What else we have? Tape measures. I have a kind of a vast variety of tape measures. Here's a Milwaukee. These 2 here are Fast Cap, and this is actually a Bauer, Harbor Freight. And I used it. I got this Milwaukee because the tip of it is magnetized. And when I was doing the work inside the shop here, when I was measuring out, for putting in the framework in between the steel studs, it was nice that I don't have to go because the studs are 5 foot apart, and I wasn't having, just to hold it out there and hopefully, I'm getting the right measure. Whereas with this, I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but you put it over here and it sticks. So you don't have to, go over there or try to hold it up there and make sure it's flush with it. Um, so that was one of the reasons why I bought this tape measure. But I would say 9 times out of 10, when I'm doing mainly like woodworking stuff, I'll use these fast cap uh, tape measures. And a lot of the reason is because they're idiot proof. Uh, I did build houses back, gosh, again, when I was doing mechanic work part time, I was building houses part time. And so back then I was able to use the tape measure pretty good because, I was using it, almost, well, every time I went to do construction work. But now that I don't do that as much anymore, I bought these fast cap. And what's nice about it is, I don't know if it'll show up on the camera or not, but it marks out every 1/8 inch what the actual measurement is. So you're not having to figure out, okay, it's 7/8. All right, well, that's 14 ticks over from, each inch. And so it just makes it a lot easier. But I have a 25-foot one, which I don't use that often, but when I do, if you need 25 foot of measurement, I have that one. I have a 16 foot, and then the 12-footer is for, just measuring out small stuff. If I'm, making something and it's not that big, uh, I'll just use the smaller one, and it's a lot lighter. You don't have to carry around a heavy tape measure all the time. My hammers, this is a Estwig hammer, and when I first started building houses, um, I showed up for the very first day, and I didn't have anything. I didn't have a tool belt. I didn't have a hammer. I didn't even have a tape measure. And the guy I was working for, the first day I show up, he's like, "Where's your tools at?" I'm like, "I don't have any tools." And he goes, "Well, okay. So let me just pull it out here because I actually still have it." He gave me a framing hammer that, he'd had for a while. And he's like, "Here, take this. Just use this." He says, "But I would suggest you go get, a good quality hammer." And so he ended up letting me keep this one even after I went and bought this one. So, but when you're using a framing hammer, it's all about leverage and, getting that definite snap and having that weight behind it. Because you got to think about, when you're building houses, you're either, the nails could range from, 2 3/4 inch to, like 3.5 inch. And trying to drive a nail with one of these, which is just your standard hammer, house hammer, as I call them, doing things around the house, uh, it'd take you freaking forever to drive a nail in. And as you can see, the heads are a lot different too. This has a waffle head on it, which is meant to, make sure that, it grips that nail when you're really hitting it. It's not going to deflect or, shave off. Whereas this, your standard, is a flathead. It's real smooth. And a lot of these are for, you putting pictures on your wall, or let's say you're just doing a little project. You're building a birdhouse. And well, if you tap that nail all the way in and if you hit the wood, it's not going to leave as much of a mark. Whereas if you use this, it's going to leave that waffle mark. So, and these don't have as much weight to them. Whereas this, I think this is a 22 ounce. If I remember right, I think this is a 22-ounce hammer. So, it's a pretty good, heavy hammer to be swinging around. But again, I've had that for quite a while and still use it. This hammer here and this hammer were my grandfather's. Um, so I'm sure he built some stuff with it. And again, when my dad asked me, would you want any of his tools? I was like, I'll take tools or all the tools that you have that you want to give me. And so I've gotten a lot of his tools, and not that I'm necessarily going to be using them all. Uh, Majority of the time, they just sit down here. Here's a ball peen hammer that was his. And again, I don't know when I'll use this, but um, I have it. Your dead blows, again, these are Pittsburgh Harbor Freight specials. Um, I use these when I'm doing some woodworking, and you don't want to be taking a hammer and beating on wood to get it in place. Where with these, you can tap it and it doesn't leave a mark on the wood or anything. As I found doing woodworking, I use a lot more clamps than prior times when I was building stuff. I mean, you're trying to hold this and do this and trying to, get it to nail up together or screw up together, and stuff that I've learned on YouTube from people that do woodworking quite a bit. Use clamps, and I'll kind of go over some of the clamps too, because I have a good variation of those. Estwig, there's a rubber mallet, and then this is a 4-pound sledge. I'm not sure. I've had this for a long time too, and I'm not even sure what brand it is, but I'll use that for pounding in steaks or stuff like that. These are measuring tools. I have some steel squares, combination squares, and then just some regular rulers. 6, 8, 12, and 14-inch metal. Uh, when since I've started doing woodworking, I've gotten where I'm more precise. Uh, when you're building houses, yeah, you're kind of precise, but you're not doing fine work or anything like that. So if you're a little bit off, it's not that bad. But as I've gotten more into building furniture around the house, I find that buying good quality measuring tools um, are to a benefit. Makes your job easier to do. And some people will say, well, why can't I'll just buy all my measuring stuff from Harbor Freight. And you could do that. The key to that is there are going to be times, and I haven't, this is the only Harbor Freight tape measure I have, so I can't compare to see, you know, as for this one actually measures up to these other tape measures. But I've seen on YouTube, other people, they've gotten tape measures from Harbor Freight, and sometimes they could be, a quarter to a half inch off. So the way you can do that is if you start out a project using one certain tape measure, continue to use that same tape measure throughout your entire project. That way you definitely know everything is going to be measured the same. Because if you measure using this one and it's a quarter or half inch off, and then you use this one, which is, you know, dead on, then all your measurements are not going to line up and stuff is just not going to work out for you. So that's something just to kind of think about when you're buying tape measures. Uh, is I'm not saying don't buy Harbor Freight brand stuff or buy Milwaukee or Fast Cap. I just say if you start a project, try to stick with the same tape measure through that entire project. That way, all your measurements are going to be about the same. As we move along, my cordless tools, I've actually gone with name brand stuff. My very first set I ever owned was DeWalt, and I got a combination set as a Christmas present one year, and I've just kind of stuck with that. I just kept going with the DeWalt. These are the 18-volt set. This is the driver that I bought later on. The drill I actually keep in the garage. That way, I always have a drill. Again, if there's projects in the house that I need to do, I don't have to come all the way out to the shop just to grab a tool and then go back in and all that. So I do buy. I do have the DeWalt And then I bought these Milwaukee because they had them on sale. These are the M12s, and I believe it was Home Depot. They had these on sale, and so as a package deal, so I got a pretty good deal on them, and so I got the drill and the driver. And then when my stepdad passed away, he had this Craftsman drill, and my mom asked me if I wanted it, and it's the 20 volt. So she gave me this, so I was like, well, since I have this one, I went ahead and bought the driver too. So this way, if you're in the middle of projects and everything, I don't want to have to stop and wait, charge up batteries and wait for it to charge. I can just go and grab the next driver. Uh, Now I haven't heard really any bad things about the Bauer brand or the Hercules from Harbor Freight. It's just I already have three different uh, brands of cordless tools, so I don't want to go and get into another cordless brand, because then that's more chargers you have to have, more different batteries you have to get, and so I've found just having these three brands is fine with me. Now I have gotten into, instead of buying the name brand replaceable batteries, the batteries for them, I've just been going on Amazon and buying, the knockoff brand batteries. And so far, I have found that they work just as good. I've only done that with the Milwaukee and the DeWalt. Here's a knockoff one uh, for a DeWalt driver. Like here's the originals, 18 volt, and then I bought a couple of knockoff ones. And the Craftsman, I hadn't bought any knockoffs for those yet, but also bought a knockoff Milwaukee charger, just because I have a lot more batteries for this. I think I have 2, 4, 5, and then actually one of my son's electric cars uses a Milwaukee battery to run it off of. So I think that's in his little Jeep that he has. So again, I'm not saying buy a name brand cordless tools. I just find that I've already, like I said, I started off with DeWalt just because somebody got for me as a Christmas gift. The Craftsman I've gotten into just because my mom gave me the drill, and the Milwaukee ones I bought just because it was on a really good sale, and I just couldn't turn it down. So I just went ahead and bought those. Router bits, Harbor Freight, because I don't router a whole lot, and I'm starting to get a little bit more into it. And with doing woodworking type stuff, building stuff, uh, my wife, she has a laundry list of projects she wants me to do with building some bookcases and tables and chests and stuff like that. So I might eventually, as of right now, they work pretty good. But again, I don't want to, give it too much of a positive rating because I haven't used those enough to say, hey, these are good quality. They do say that it has a lifetime warranty on them, or it says lifetime carbide. Uh, so I've only used a few of the bits. It's more like the chamfer, the roundover bits, and so far they have worked pretty good. I think also have some. Oh, here they are. These are straight router bits, and again, these are Harbor Freight. And the reason why I did it was I built it's almost like a linen cabinet for one of our bathrooms, and instead of just taking a board and nail it from the side, I actually cut out a dado, and I used a 3/4 inch straight bit to cut that dado out, and it actually worked very well. I was surprised how well it went through that, and it wasn't just some flimsy plywood that I was cutting into. It was uh, birch plywood, and so it cut right through. Didn't have any hiccups with it, because sometimes I've heard people, they'll, if the router bit isn't that good, sometimes it'll kind of track off. And with this, it went right through it pretty easy. Uh, so for router bits, I would say, if it's something that you're just going to do once in a while, then I would just start out with the Harbor Freight router bits and see where it goes from there. Uh, I know some of the guys who are serious into woodworking, I think they get their uh, router bits from, I think it's called Bits and Bits. And you order those, of course, online. Everything's on the internet nowadays. But that's another step up, in quality. As for some sanders, I have kind of a variety of those. Um, Here's a Harbor Freight sander. That's Bauer. I think they had it on sale for $20. Here's a Rigid square sander, and here's a Ryobi square sander. Uh, I just keep a variety of sanders because when you're doing a project and you want to go from different grits, instead of stopping, peeling off paper, putting another one on, sanding and peeling it off. Because I'll start out, 120, then I'll jump up to 150 or 180, and then I have 220. And if it's something, I really want to have a really fine finish on, I even have 320 grit sandpaper. And it's nice just to, you know, put a different grit on each sander, and that way all I have to do is just set the sander down and grab another one and keep on going. But again, with my orbital sanders, I have two Ryobis, and this is a Bauer sander. Now, I will say, just being, I would call myself a weekend woodworker, these work great. Now, I did build a really nice big table for my wife, for our back porch. And I started out with, it was raw white oak and also raw walnut wood. And I just don't have the tools to handle that kind of stuff. I think I have a sample here. This isn't the raw, but this is kind of like the finished after it's been milled down, planed, and cut to shape. And lucky enough, I know somebody that has my ultimate dream shop. It's a shop that it just makes me drool when I walk into that shop, because everything in there is meant to build, high quality and, furniture and stuff like that. Uh, but he has tools in there like his table saw, is a big cabinet saw that's made by SawStop. A lot of his bigger tools, like his planer, his joiner, what else? A drum sander, a bandsaw. Those were all Powermatic, and you're talking high dollar tools. And then getting into uh, when I was kind of doing the finishing part, joining boards together and then sanding them, he has Festool. And anybody that knows about Festool, you're talking high dollar money. They're made in Germany, and just the sander itself is, I believe I looked at it. I think it was close to like $700. Now it's a 6-inch orbital sander, but you can definitely tell the difference when you're using that brand as compared to any of these brands. I mean, it Festool would blow DeWalt, Milwaukee, uh, Cobalt, Makita. It blows them out of the water. It doesn't matter what it is. Festool is on the next level. And if I was, I would say, trying to earn a living by making, uh, furniture and stuff like that, then I would, that's when you would consider buying, a higher end uh, uh, tool and spending the money. Because I definitely noticed the difference when I was using that Festool. And then I came home and I had another project and I was using this. I'm like, oh yeah, it does make a difference. So these are some air tools that I have up here. Uh, most of these are actually Harbor Freight. This is a pin nailer. This is a brad nailer. This is a cutoff tool. This is actually a Craftsman here. This is a 3/8 drive air ratchet. This is a kind of like your air tool that blows air to if you're blowing off sawdust and stuff like that. This is a staple gun. This is Harbor Freight Banks brand, and then this is actually a Senko finish nailer, which when I first bought my first air compressor, I bought a Senko framing nailer and the finish nailer. And then as I've gone along and noticed that, well, I don't use these that often. I did use my brad nailer quite a bit when we were building our house because I put all the trim work up myself. And by using uh, this one here, you know, it got the job done. And I definitely put it through its paces. Uh, so by putting, I mean, all the base molding, trim around all the doors, the windows, everything throughout that entire house, I used this Harbor Freight brad nailer here, and it did perfectly fine. Never had an issue with it. Uh, this is something that a buddy that I work with gave me. It's just a Harbor Freight electrical uh, cord that's on a reel, and again, you could go to Home Depot or Lowe's, and you're going to be spending some good money just to buy an electrical wheel. But he offered it to me. In fact, he just gave it to me. He said he's never used it. It was actually still in the box when he gave it to me. But I find using this because if I'm doing something on the other side of the shop and I do have outlets over there, but if the tool I'm using that I'm plugging in, the cord isn't long enough, then I'm still going to need an extension cord. So it's easier just to come over here and yank this and pull it across. And what's nice, as you can probably see, I have a French cleat system in here, is that I have this on a French cleat. So if I do want to put it on the other side of the shop, I just unplug it, and then I can just hang it back up over on the other side of the shop. And so it's kind of a mobile um, electrical system here that I have. Here is my miter saw. Uh, I've had this for oh, pretty long time, and this is a tool that I'd like to upgrade. Um, Not that there's anything wrong with it. I've done tons of work with this miter saw. It's just this is a 10-inch blade, and I would like to move up to a 12-inch. And this is Ryobi, and actually the saw that I'm looking at is the one actually at Harbor Freight. It's the Hercules 12-inch circular saw. It's a sliding compound saw. It does the dual bevel and everything. And I'm looking at that because, again, I don't see the need to spend, the amount of money to buy, a DeWalt one or a Makita or uh, what's some of the other uh, big name Milwaukee, you know, miter saws because I'm not going to be using it like I typically would, um, like a carpenter would. So this has worked very well for me, but again, I just want a bigger blade, and so I just think that it's a time to move up. I've had this for probably well over 20 years, and it's served me well. It's missing the guard and everything, so with having kids, um, I'd like to get the guard. I think the last one, I think during a move or whatever, the guard busted off, and with it just me, I'm usually try to be pretty mindful about when I'm using this. But now that my kids sometimes are out here in the shop with me, and I'd rather just get another miter saw, and then I can get one that has a guard on it. So that is something that is in my future to buy another miter saw. And again, I'm not going with a name brand either. Like I said, I'm probably looking at getting the Bauer or the Hercules brand. These are my clamps, and I do have some um, Jorgensen clamps. Uh, I think I got these because they had these on sale at Home Depot one time, and so I went ahead and uh, bought a couple of those. Those are the 6-inch ones, and then I think at the same time, I think they just had a Jorgensen special going on or something, and so I bought 2 of these clamps. But these are all Harbor Freight clamps, and so far I've only had one Harbor Freight clamp where it's been an issue, and it just wouldn't lock. So I'd slide it up and it'd just slide right back down. I think the spring in it for the back here, I don't know if it was just a bad spring or what, but uh, I didn't realize it when I bought it, and when I got it home, I was putting them up here, and I noticed that it just slid down, and so I just took it back, and they gave me a new one. So again, these are Harbor Freight, and I think the smaller one, the 6-inch ones, are like $4 or $5, and I think these are 12-inch, and I think I paid $7 a piece for these. Whereas, I think normal price for these 6-inch clamps from the Jorgensen are like $12 a piece, and I find that these hold just as tight as the Jorgensen does. Here's some Bessey clamps. These are my real long clamps that I have for if I'm doing like if I'm trying to do some really wide long work. I have these, and again, I think those were on sale or something. That's the reason why I got them. And as you can see, I have some other clamps here. Here's my bar clamps. I believe these are Bessey pipe clamps. Of course, you buy the pipe separate. I just bought these. Actually, I bought these on Amazon, and they weren't that expensive. And then also I have some spring clamps, Harbor Freight. Got some of those. And then I have these also, these type of clamps. These are the ponies. Um, Again, I think those are on sale. That's the reason why I have them. And then I have these quick clamps. These are actually Irwin, and I believe somebody bought those for me for Christmas. And of course, they work really good. And then again, Harbor Freight. So far, I've noticed that these work just as good as the Irwins do. I've heard some people say, well, the clamping pressure sometimes isn't as tight with these Harbor Freight ones as the Irwins, but so far I haven't noticed any difference. It's they both worked as I wanted them to. These are some long clamps here for again, for bigger projects. These are Harbor Freight, and then I have a couple of cabinet. These are 4-footer cabinet clamps, and these are Bremen, which is a Harbor Freight brand. And there is a guy on YouTube. I think it's called 731 Woodworks. I believe that's it. Don't hold me to it. But he actually did a comparison between these Harbor Freight parallel clamps to all the name brands: Bessey, Jorgensen, uh, Irwin. He had, I think, 5 or 6 different kinds of parallel or cabinet clamps, as some people call them. And he found that actually these Bremen uh, parallel clamps was better than anybody else. I don't know he just said that, and just watching the demonstration, you can tell these did they held up. A lot of them, I think it was the Bessie clamps, the bars. You know, you start putting a lot of pressure, that bar would just start bending, and you don't want a lot of bend in when you're trying to get stuff to clamp together. And so I went ahead and I bought a set of 48-inch. I'll probably get me another set of 48-inch, and then I want uh, two sets of 24-inch. So that way, if I'm building some smaller cabinets or something like that, then I won't have these big ones here to contend with. An upgrade that I did this past year was I did buy me a better upgrade. And sorry, I don't have a this is a mobile table, but I got all my kids uh, riding cars in here, so I'm not able to push this all the way out like I'd want to. But this is a DeWalt job site table saw, and again, if I was to be into you know building furniture and stuff all the time as a job, yes, I would probably go and buy a higher grade, a higher quality um, table saw, whether that be uh, a Delta, or, of course, to me, I think the top of the line would be a saw stop. But, to get a cabinet grade uh, saw stop table saw, you're talking $4,000 or $5,000 easy. And so with the little projects I do, and I found that upgrading, because I did have a Ryobi table saw that I actually bought about the same time as I had bought that miter saw. And when I finally gotten to the point where my woodworking ability has slowly started getting better and better, I just decided I wanted to get a better table saw. And I noticed the difference, the power that this one has over that Ryobi that I had uh, is a lot more in this DeWalt. And uh, and then when I went to my buddy's house who has a saw stop, I can definitely see the higher quality that that saw has compared to my DeWalt. But again, I'm not doing it as a business where I'm trying to make a living off of it. So, but this is was an investment that I had, and lucky enough, a guy I work with, he had just bought a house, and it's kind of a he's wanting to fix some things up on it. It's an older home, and uh, he knew that I was looking at wanting to get a new table saw. So he's like, "Hey," he said, "Would you sell me your old one?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm not going to use. I don't need two of them." So he bought my old one, and right after that, I bought this DeWalt one, and it's worked really good. If anybody would like for me to do a little bit of review on that, just put a message, post a message down below, and I'll do a review on it. So far, I've used it, probably, I don't know, a couple dozen times, and haven't had an issue with it yet. It definitely gives precise cuts when you set up your measurements right and you put your fencing the way you're supposed to and everything. It works great. So, and then I built this again. It's on a mobile station, so I'm able to move this in and out. But again, like I said, I have a kid's side by side, a kid's Jeep, and a tractor. So I lose some space in my shop once in a while. But again, it's worth it. Having kids, as I said in my previous video, it's definitely made a big change, and I definitely enjoy having them. Sometimes they can be a little bit of a ruckus, but hey, if I remember right, I was probably that way too. Another tool that is a Harbor Freight is a drill press. Um, It's Central Machinery drill press. I believe it's a 5 speed, yeah, 5 speed press. So with this, I would say, depending on what you're going to be doing, um, this would work fine for what I use it for. Mainly just drilling into wood and stuff like that. It works great. I have drilled into metal, but it struggles. Um, it has a little bit of a hard time. It just doesn't have the power to get through that. Now, I'm sure if you went up to their, I think 8 and 12 speed, models, it might be better. I believe Central Machinery for Harbor Freight, I think, is kind of phasing out, and they're bringing more. The Bauer. I think Bauer is their standard drill press now, and I don't know if I've seen a Hercules drill press yet, but I know Bauer they've come out with that. So, and it looks like it's a little bit better quality. Um, but as of right now, like I said, I don't use it a whole lot, but there's times when it just makes it easier if you use a drill press instead of trying to continuously get precise drilled holes and making sure they're you know perfectly perpendicular. I would use the drill press more than I would just a standard drill. So that is another Harbor Freight. Another Harbor Freight I have is a bench sander, where it has the 6-inch disc and then the 4-inch wide belt sander. And I've watched some reviews on that on YouTube of other people that have gotten this product, and a lot of them, not I wouldn't say a lot of them. I would say there were some that they didn't care for it because they said I put a piece of wood on there and it stops. As far as I know, in all the times that I've used it so far, I haven't had that issue. It's pretty much just you know now you don't want to be putting all your weight into it and pushing a piece of wood. I think that would stop any sander. But again, it's a Bauer, it's a Harbor Freight sander, and again, I haven't had any issues with it. Now there is a couple tools that I have that I would say um, going name brand sometimes is a little bit better. Now I didn't buy this one. This was my grandfather's. This is a Makita. This is a Sawzall, and so I would definitely, you know, I don't know if I would go and buy one of these just because I don't use a Sawzall that often. But the few times I have used this, it definitely has the power. So I can't really compare it to, a cheaper brand, whether uh, or any other brand. Um, this is the only one I've ever owned, and again, it was given to me. An angle grinder is that I have. That's DeWalt, and I bought that. I can't remember the full purpose of why I first bought it. But anyways, I do have a DeWalt angle grinder, and then I have a Rockwell oscillator, and I bought this when these were kind of first coming out, and so I don't even think Harbor Freight had made a design of these yet when I bought this. So, but it's a Rockwell. Like I said, it's one of those oscillating tools, and this really came in handy when I was doing like I said, all that trim work uh, for my house. It made it easy to uh, cut up the baseboards, where I needed to angle out and around door frames and stuff like that. So again, I can't say how that would compare to a Harbor Freight brand. The Bauer. I know they make uh, an oscillator now for Bauer, and but I've never used one, from that brand, so I couldn't compare it to the Rockwell. Something that I will say that I believe is a good quality tool that you should probably buy. Um, a name brand is a drill, and also I don't want to get it out, but is a circular saw. These are DeWalt. It's a corded one, uh, and I just find with this DeWalt drill and my circular saw, the power that you notice between getting a lower brand product and you step up to a DeWalt or Milwaukee or Makita or whichever brand that you might be looking at. Because like my circular saw, I had a Skill circular saw, and it worked fine. It did what it was supposed to do. It cut through plywood, but when I decided I wanted to upgrade to a DeWalt circular saw, it was night and day. When I would cut through a piece of 3/4 inch plywood, it would just zip right through it. And it was probably because it had more amperage to it, feeding the power to the blade and that. And but again, something like that, it depends on what you're going to use it for, how much you're going to use it. What kind of wood are you cutting? If you are going to be cutting, uh, you know, solid white oak, or are you cutting just some pine plywood? The solid white oak, you're going to need a little bit beefier circular saw to get through that. And again, the main reason why I enjoy or like having this DeWalt uh, plug-in drill was when I was securing the framing inside these steel beams. I actually had to drill using those step bits into the steel beam, just to kind of make like a pilot hole. Then I could put the bigger screws, the metal screws in there, because I was taking the studs, going through the stud, and then going into the steel stud of the building, so that way they secure it together. Because behind all this plywood is actual framework. And so by having a better drill, it felt like it just made it a lot easier, because these cordless battery powered drills, I tried to use them, and they just didn't have the power behind them to be sufficient, because I felt like it'd take me a while. Something else that is an item that you could go a little bit cheaper. You don't have to buy the top name. This is a jigsaw. This says Skill on it, but actually that one I think I gave to somebody, and then I replaced it. I got a Craftsman jigsaw in here, and the reason I got the Craftsman, they had it on sale, because it's an item or a tool, I guess, that I just don't use that often. And but it was on sale, and I was like, you know what, I want to get a little bit better jigsaw, uh, because it does make a difference, especially if you're trying to do angle cuts and do that scroll cutting. Uh, by having a little bit better, higher grade jigsaw, I think it makes the job a little bit easier and more precise. I think that should about cover it. Um, I do have two compressors. One or both of them actually are Craftsman. I have a pancake compressor, and then I have another compressor on the other side of the shop that's I believe it's a 30 gallon or 15, maybe 15 gallon. It's one of the oblong uh, compressor tanks, and I've had that one for a long time too. It's actually my very first compressor that I bought. Um, but again, Harbor Freight, they sell compressors, and I think they're called Fortress compressors, and I haven't heard any bad things about those. So, you know, again, just do your research. Watch people on YouTube. I believe majority of the time, if I'm going to go buy a tool, uh, I'm going to go on YouTube first and find out, what is good out there, what is crap out there. Just like I said before, with buying these measuring tools, you know, these aren't, the top of the line in any type of woodworking. You know, anybody that does woodworking knows that woodpecker tools, those are your top of the line. But comparable to some of these other ones that I've bought on Amazon, uh, there's been people that own woodpecker tools, and they'll buy some of these and compare them, and they're basically the same. So uh, it just depends on, if you're the kind of person that feels like they have to have the name brand, and uh, then go with that. If you're the kind of person that thinks, hey, I don't need name brand stuff, I just need a tool that's going to do the job for me, and it is going to last. So that's kind of my 2 cents. Again, I'm not knocking anybody. I'm not knocking Brock, because I know Brock, he said, especially like those little box sets, he thinks they're kind of worthless. But again, I think there's a time and place to have some of those tools. Like I said, I'd rather keep a small set of sockets and screwdrivers in my garage, so that if I have to do some type of project within my house or anything like that, I don't have to walk all the way out here and hope I grab the right size or right tool to go back in the house and do the project. Then I'm walking back and forth. So, and then again, with that tool set that I have that I keep in my truck, um, is it top grade? Is it top quality? No, uh, but it could be where it gets me out of a pinch. So um, sorry, my dog is whining in here because it's pouring outside right now and it's making noise on the roof. You might be hearing, sounds like somebody's tapping on the roof. But I also keep, on my side by side and my tractor, I keep, a very small assortment of tools on there. And I would say almost all of those tools are Harbor Freight, because they're going to be tools that I just use once in a while. If I need to tighten up a bolt, on the tractor, or like one of the implements, especially, using your implements, stuff does loosen up. You got a lot of heavy vibrations and stuff like that. Well, why am I going to buy, a $50 wrench just to keep in my toolbox? So when I'm out working in the woods and I need to tighten a bolt up, okay, that doesn't make any sense to do that. And then what if it somehow drops out of the toolbox and I lose it? Well, if it ends up in the woods, more likely it's going to stay out there, because you don't know where you might have lost it. So I would say that, you know, to each their own as to how much money you want to spend for something, uh, and how often are you going to use it, and was it worth to you, as to, do I have to possibly, buy this product 2 or 3 times because I bought something really cheap and it just broke, you know, and I have to keep replacing it. Whereas if you buy sometimes a higher quality item, it's going to last a lot longer, as you can see with those S&K tools. I've had those for over 30 years, uh, and don't have a bit of problem with them. Some of the tools that my grandfather, you know, I think if he was still alive, he would be 102, 103 years old. And so that kind of tells you how old some of those tools are that my dad passed on to me, that were his. So, you know, there is a a, a thing with buying good stuff. Um, and as they say, if you buy cheap crap, sometimes that's what you're going to get, is crap. But again, there are times when you do buy cheap stuff, and it's just because I'm just going to use it once in a while. Like my sanders. They're not high quality, top of the line. I think my most expensive sander up there is my Rigid one, and to be honest with you, I don't use it that often. but you know, I use the Ryobis and the Bowers the majority of the time when I'm doing sanding stuff. So, but hopefully this has helped somebody out. You know, I'm just passing a little bit of information. I'm not trying to start a battle here with Brock. Again, he's with Rock Hill Farms YouTube channel. He does uh, a lot of tractor work. I think that's how I came across him on YouTube. Was he does some tractor work, you know, with the implements and stuff like that. And when I was looking at, you know, getting a tractor and what kind of implements I want to get for it and stuff like that, I just kind of go out there and look at other people's YouTube channels and see what kind of information they can provide. So hope you all have a great day. I'm hoping mine. I don't think the sun's going to be coming out anytime soon. I think we're actually supposed to get another 3 days of rain here. So I'm glad I got out the other day and did a little bit of work. As you saw in my last video where I took that tree down. Well, that was only, 2 days ago that I was able to get out and do that kind of work. But it's supposed to rain for, I think, like 5 days in a row right now. And so I don't see myself getting out in the woods anytime soon to get any other work done. So it's kind of being in the shop right now. Uh, you know, this is a time where, you know, I might have to, you know, grease some fittings on the tractor or the side by side, or, you know, just this is kind of like the cleanup time. I might even, you know, take my tools out and clean those up, clean up the bench, you know, because sometimes, you know, it gets dust and everything in here. And so I'll take the time to do that kind of stuff too. So, but I think my next video, uh, depending on how the weather is, I would like to get the tractor out and do a review on the tractor. And but when I think about doing it, then the weather's like this because I don't want to do it. You know, a review of the tractor inside the shop just because I'm just trying to maneuver around and all that. And so it's just easier. Plus, I think the lighting would be a lot better if it's outside, sun was shining, and I could really go over it. So I want to do that, and then I might do a review on the side by side, and then also just maybe do like a shop tour. Um, you know, I did a lot with this building. Um, when I had it first had it built, it was just a plain metal building with no power. I mean, it just had a roll up door, two windows, and a door to get in and out, you know, on the side. So, but over the years, I've had this shop now for almost 4 years, and I've done a lot to it. And so I would, you know, at some point, you know, just kind of do a little bit of a mini tour of what I've done to it. I've kind of said some things that I've done, you know, I did this French cleat system in the shop, you know, put these walls in, but just to get an idea, because be honest, how I got the idea to do all this work inside here was watching a guy on YouTube who also has, you know, a metal building. And anybody that has a metal building knows that if you try to go and do this type of wall, you have to build a frame in between those metal studs so you can secure this and make sure it's sturdy enough and strong because you got 5 foot spans in between the steel studs. So, and with me, I kind of tend to overbuild just because I want to definitely make sure that when I build it, it's going to last and I don't have to worry about it, you know, falling apart or anything like that. Well, that's my cue. I've been talking too much. So, hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe. If you have any comments, definitely leave them below. And I will see you next time.